Welcome to Fun and Fundraising, everybody. The podcast where we talk with people behind top nonprofit galas and signature fundraising events to showcase how they positively transform their communities. I'm your host, Rob Giardinelli, and today we have two really fun and special guests on. So we have Tiffany Tate, who is the CEO of The Family Place, which is Texas's largest provider of domestic violence services for people who have experienced domestic violence, along with Margette Hepfner, who is the co-chair of one of the organization's marquee signature fundraising events, Partners Card. And really the reason we've got them on here today is one of the things that a lot of organizations do for signature fundraisers is try to find a way to effectively utilize commerce to raise funds for their organization. And I will say, of all the organizations I've worked with and seen over the years, Partners Card really is the gold standard in Texas and frankly beyond in terms of galvanizing the community, not just in terms of getting people to attend, but also having corporate sponsors come back year after year. So this is going to be a really fun conversation, and I'm really excited. And with that, Tiffany, Margette, welcome. And I'm so excited to have you here today. And Margette, I apologize for butchering your last name.
Oh my gosh, with the first name like Margette and a last name like Heffner with an extra P in there, believe me, my entire life, it's no big deal.
Oh, well, I'm thrilled to have you both here. And Tiffany, I want to address the first question to you. Talk about what the mission of the Family Place is.
Yes. So first, thank you for having me. I'm super appreciative. I always love talking about the family place, so I'm grateful to be here. Our mission is to empower survivors of family violence by providing safe housing, counseling, and the skills needed to build independence. But we don't stop there. We also work to engage the broader community and advocate for social change. So that's a really large way of saying we provide wraparound services, right? We intervene at every level that domestic violence is occurring in a family. We believe that ending family violence takes both direct services like shelter and counseling and systemic action. And that's where the family place shows up every day.
That's fantastic. And I love that that's one of the things that's so amazing about your organization is you really do take a holistic, that may not be the perfect word, but you really do take a 360 approach on really understanding the whole cycle and what people need at every step and every phase of the way. So, thank you so much for sharing that. And, I always love asking this next question of people, and we'll start with Margette and then Tiffany will have you chime in. But I always love to understand how people get involved with organizations because everyone's path, and we've done 100 something episodes, and everyone's path to a nonprofit is unique and different in their own way. So, Margette, I'd love for you to start and share your path of how you, initially got involved, and then Tiffany, I'd love you to share your story.
Sure.
Absolutely. So I do want to go back, and this has a little bit to do with the why I got involved and I guess why I said yes. But the family place, it meets people in the moment. So when you talk about kind of that holistic or the 360 approach, there are so many different places where families and survivors need help. And one of the things that I've always appreciated about the family place, and I've been a Partners Card purchaser for many, many years. I couldn't even begin to tell you the first time I purchased one. Um, but I've been a supporter probably long before I understood the big picture. But I was ultimately introduced to being involved in the event and specifically co-chairing Partners Card through a friend, Kristen Hallam's, who I graduated from SMU with. We both got our executive MBAs together. I attended Reunite last year. I really got inspired, and I think it's really important for all of us to find things that bring passion to us, maybe aside from what we do on a day-to-day basis, whether you're raising a family or involved in your career and engaged in things. And it's really important to find something else that brings passion to you, or at least it is to me, and to remind us of the other people in our community who we may not cross paths with on a day-to-day basis, but who we can actually help. We just take a step back, and the family place does so many things to help people within our community just here in Dallas, but to your point, across the state. And I know they're connected elsewhere. So it's really impossible not to want to be a part of the family place when you see all of the great work that they're doing.
I love that. I love the way you shared that story and really about, I love it's almost like, you enter a stadium and you can enter through any one of a number of different doorways. And I love that you kind of tied that whole 360 thing we were talking about together. That's immediately what I thought of was, oh, you can enter a stadium through so many different entry points. And that's essentially what, what you offered and what you did. But I also loved that you talked about, being able to provide services for people you may never see or never meet and really getting satisfaction that you helped make somebody's life better and you can pay it forward. You don't have to meet somebody to pay them forward. And I really loved that response for that reason. And Tiffany, I'd love to hear, your path on becoming the CEO of this organization, how you got to the family place.
Yeah, so I'm going to date myself, so don't calculate, but I have been in social services for 30 years. And so primarily worked with homeless population and domestic violence. I had, a spattering of that in the homeless population, but never really got ingrained in these services until I came to the family place. And so I was working at a homeless shelter, encountered someone that had engaged with the family place, came over to visit and have been here ever since. And so I really joined this mission to work directly with survivors and their families. And that program experience really, really grounded me to the mission. So over time, after being here, I moved into leadership, then became interim CEO and am now CEO for it'll be a year in June.
Wow. So you stayed with the organ. So what, I'm always, because a lot of people with nonprofits jump around from, position to position. The family place has had a relatively, has a very stable veteran set of employees. What has made you stay with this organization to go through and grow with the organization, become interim CEO and then become permanent CEO?
I mean, there's so many factors, but I think the number one factor for me is just the resiliency of survivors of domestic violence. And I mean, that's so hard to explain using words, but you have to see it. And so our victims, despite what they're being exposed to in their home, despite how they're being harmed, they get up every single day, they get ready for work, they get their children ready for school, they take care of households. And that is just such an empowering thing to see on a daily basis. And so I think that is what has really connected me for so long, not only to this agency, but to the mission as well.
That's absolutely fantastic. And and that kind of it's a good segue kind of to talk into the event a little bit and Margette to talk about, I want to talk a little bit about the key to a successful relationship between event chairs and a nonprofit because, when we were bantering in the green room, everyone was getting along really well and you could just tell that y'all like each other and that makes my job so much easier as a moderator. So, Margette, I'd love for you to, offer your thoughts first and then Tiffany, I'd love for you to chime in after that.
Oh gosh, that's I think it's a lot about personalities. I will also say to be involved in a charity, whether you're Tiffany and you're in charge of everything, and hurting all of us, because I know working with nonprofits and working with individuals who are giving their time, and sometimes we can give a lot of time and sometimes we can't get a lot of time. Um, it's that mutual respect and transparency. I will also say you have to have a servant heart. You have to have you have to be a bit of a giver, for lack of a better word, to be involved in things like this, which is why I appreciate even being invited to this table. But I will say almost immediately there's a mutual respect, transparency. Everyone looks around the table and sees that we're all bringing something different to the table, a different perspective, and no judgment, as odd as that sounds, right? So all of us are here in the Dallas area. Interestingly enough, we have some of the same connections, so we know some of the same people, and it's possible that we could actually call some of the same people for contributions or to participate. And it's just, again, I'm going to go back to the mutual respect and transparency and really understanding everyone's goals, making sure that we're fully aligned, and that we're all engaged. Like anything else, we get out of it what we put into it. And if we're committing to be involved in it, then we have to put our whole selves into it and trust that each one of us are going to hold up our end of what we've promised to do. And I mean, honestly, we owe that to Tiffany and to the family place, that we're here, we're co-chairing for a reason. And I'm committed to helping make this successful and even more successful than last year.
Fantastic. That was a really, really smart, insightful ways as to how, organizations can work effectively with chairs. And Tiffany, I can't wait to hear your response, but I'd love for you to elaborate a little bit on, because the organization has three signature fundraisers. There's Reunite, the Trailblazers Luncheon, and Partners Card. Talk about how you develop successful relationships with event chairs, and also kind of maybe what you kind of look for and how that it may be different, a leader for Partners Card versus, say, a leader for Reunite, some in terms of finding a chair.
Sure, sure. I think for me, the way to develop a successful relationship with an event chair as a nonprofit is really to always go back to the why, because that allows grace for so many different things to occur, right? So if the chair might have a little bit of a different vision than some of the staff have, or vice versa, we all remember that we're here for victims of domestic violence, and that just makes everything so much better, right? So that is a really important part to me about a successful relationship. In looking for chairs, I really look at what people are passionate about. Like when you're asking someone to chair, people think that that's just like showing up in a pretty dress. Our chairs work hard. And I mean, they work hard in every single event. And we are a very busy group. So to be able to align with the pace that we operate at the family place is a phenomenal, phenomenal thing to do. So, we have people who may be more interested in retail versus putting together a luncheon. And so if we can find what the chair is passionate about, we can connect them more in a more meaningful way to the event.
That's fantastic. And really understanding what a person's individual strengths are is so key and so critical. And especially because you have three very substantial that require a lot of work to execute successfully, as all three do year after year. And to really understand what their passion is and the why to that passion, and tying all that together is really, that's so insightful, and really just great advice for anyone looking to, have multiple signature fundraisers in a year. And I want to talk about, because Partners Card has been around for many, many, many years. And Tiffany, I want to direct this next question to you. And I'd love for you to talk about how you create a devoted following for a signature fundraiser. And with Partners Card, it's different because it's not just people in the community. It's also getting businesses to come back year after year, because it's not necessarily the typical corporate sponsorship. So what is one thing an organization can do to really create that devoted following?
So I'll talk about kind of the major events, the luncheon and Reunite, right? With those things, you always have to anchor the event to the mission. So at the end of the day, people do love to show up to parties or events, but at the end of the day, there is something that connects them to the work that we're doing. And so the event has to be anchored in that. It's really the same thing for Partners Card, but I'll tell you something interesting I've seen about Partners Card over the years is it has now become this exciting competition between the stores. If you're at North Park Mall and there's two stores that have the balloons out front for Partners Card and one who doesn't, they go over and they're like, I can't believe you guys aren't participating in Partners Card. And so it's really an exciting event in that way. There's a really, really healthy competition that's made it so successful for us.
And that it's healthy competition, because at the end of the day, everybody wins. The retailers may sell a
Yes.
little bit more, one may sell a little bit more than another, but at the end of the day, it's all benefiting the family place. And Margette, can you explain, because some people are like, okay, explain what this Partners Card is. So explain the concept of Partners Card and just kind of at a high level how it works.
Sure, absolutely. So as consumers, individuals, and in all honesty, those retailers just have to sign up, and they have to be willing to offer the discount to the customers that are coming in their door, right? So that's it. They've purchased the card. And then as a consumer, I would say for me, it does two things. One, I may be purchasing something that I would have purchased full price, but more importantly, it makes me feel good that I'm giving back to a charity just by simply purchasing that card. I will also say, with the timing of Partners Card being in the fall, when people start doing their holiday shopping even a little bit earlier, I know that was the first time that I bought a Partners Card at a retailer. It was actually just kind of a local baby store, gift store, that I was shopping for a baby gift, and they were so excited to tell me about the Partners Card. And then I started searching for it every single year after that. But again, to go back to, the retailer just has to sign up and commit to offering the discount to their customers, to all customers that come in the door. that purchase that partners card. And when you see, I mean, retailers, they're salespeople, right? So they're as excited about selling you a partner's card as they are selling you something in their store, regardless of whether it's, a pair of shoes, a t-shirt, a baby gift, whatever it is.
Absolutely. And Tiffany, I'd love for you to elaborate on that. One, just share, because it's a very reasonable cost, one. And two, if you buy enough stuff like Margette was talking about, if you're shopping for the holidays, the partner's card actually pays for itself in some ways and then some. So talk a little bit about, the reasonable price point, how it allows a lot of people to purchase so that you raise money, but it winds up financially, I don't want to say benefiting them, but they wind up getting a savings overall, overall.
Yeah, absolutely. So the partners card is $100, right? So that equates to one night of shelter for a family, right? And so you spend that $100 and then you get a discount at over 300 stores. I mean, can you imagine like 300 stores, but also, and that's over a period of 10 days, right? So can you imagine a store that never puts things on sale, that there are never discounts? There are a lot of stores in the Highland Park area, in the Park Cities area, some even in North Park in the malls that put on this discount just for Partners Card. So I've had people say within one afternoon of shopping, I have recouped my money in savings, right? And so it's just a really great event, but it's also really, really fun. It's great to have it right before Christmas so that people can get prepared for their Christmas gifts for their family. So it's just an amazing thing. And you will absolutely recoup your $100 while making sure that a family has a night of shelter.
And I
And
love, oh, go ahead, Margette.
I can promise you that I have recouped my $100 every single year.
And most people do. And and elaborate on that too, because we're talking a lot about retail, but it's not just retail. There's an awful lot of other types of establishments like restaurants where you can take advantage of that too. So feel free to either one of you feel free to chime in and elaborate on on that as well, because Dallas has a thriving food scene.
Yeah, I'm happy to talk about that as well. We have restaurants that also afford people discounts who shop with the card, but a huge partnership is with Tom Thumb. So there's a grocery ticket in the Partners Card book that you can use as well. So a great day of shopping, you want to stop and take a lunch break, and you can eat and still get an additional discount with that as well.
That's fantastic. And that really, it's more than just shopping. It's also like if you go to Tom Thumb and you go there regularly for groceries,
Mhm.
you save money on your grocery bill, and that's another way to, to pay for itself. And I just love the simplicity of the message, $100. It gives a family a night of shelter. It's such a simple message, and it shows that even smaller donations can make a huge life-changing difference for people and for folks. And 700 plus retailers is a lot of retailers. And I'd love to hear, and Margette, we'll start with you, and Tiffany, I'd love for you to chime in, but talk about how the Family Place recruits these local retailers to be a part of Partners Card, and maybe share a little bit about the partnership with North Park Mall. And anyone who's not familiar with North Park Mall, I would put that mall up against any mall in America. It is really that fantastic on
Yes.
every single level. So Margette, I'd love for you to
It
start, and
absolutely
Tiffany, for
is.
you to chime in.
Sure. So, a lot of it, because Partners Card has been around for so long, a lot of word of mouth over the years and creating that continual excitement around it. But at the end of the day, it's really understanding the goals of each one of the businesses that we're approaching to be part of, to participate in Partners Card. Um, Restaurants are newer and hopefully growing more this year as well. It sometimes is a little bit complicated to make sure that we're getting out and having that conversation with the right people that can commit to be part of Partners Card, right? Because again, they're offering a discount to anyone that comes in the store. A lot of it is just word of mouth. And Rob, you said something a few minutes ago, and this definitely applies to the different types of retailers. Just explaining, helping people in the community understand, whether it's the individual purchasing the card or the businesses, that their purchase of $100 really goes a long way. It doesn't have to be a large donation, and getting everyone excited about it. And then I will add, and then I know Tiffany can give us even more specifics, but just seeing the red and purple balloons around the city around North Park, around Uptown in different areas, Highland Park Village. It's kind of exciting. It's a little bit of a kickoff back to the holiday season again. You see the balloons everywhere. It gets you excited, both as a retailer, a restaurant, and then as the consumer who's shopping.
Yeah, I think the way that we really focus on recruiting retailers is through relationships. It's extremely relational. And I will say that the people in our organization who work on Partners Card, the director, the associates, the development folks are so genuinely excited about Partners Card that it just people want to connect and they want to be a part of it. And so that's super important. We have really, really long-standing partnerships. And we talk a lot about the exposure they'll receive and connect it again back to that one night of shelter, and retailers love it.
That's fantastic. And I have a follow-up question to that, Tiffany. And when you're approaching retailers, is there a difference in the approach of how you would approach a restaurant versus how you would approach more of a traditional shopping for clothes or shoes or bags or any of those other things? Or is it a pretty similar universal thing? Because I have had people ask that question before, and I was like, you know what? I have this coming up. I'm going to ask you so we can just get that out there.
Yeah, I would say no, not really, because it all drives traffic, right? So when you talk about the increase in traffic, the increase in sales, the increase in people coming into your restaurant to enjoy a meal, I think the approach can be the same. Now, it could be tailored based on the type of store. Meaning a more high-end store might like to hear more about the type of traffic that are going to come in, the neighborhoods that we're going to recruit, how it can be a lot of repeat customers. But in general, it's just about showing them how people will come into their establishment because they support Partners Card.
Well, and that actually is a good, and Margette, I'll address this next question to you. That actually kind of dovetails into, you kind of all make a season out of it in addition to the 10 days. And I know to drive interest, like last year, I know you did like a kickoff brunch and a Veronica Beard event to do kind of special preview and kickoff events to really help generate that interest and excitement. Talk about how events like that help both promote Partners Card, but it also entices donors to further engage with the family place.
Sure. So they're relationship builders, to your point, Rob. When you bring people together around a shared mission in a space that feels either thoughtful or elevated or comfortable to them, so space that they're comfortable with, they're not just there to shop, they're really connecting on a deeper level. And it gives us the opportunity to talk more about the family place and the why behind Partners Card. And one of the things that particularly in the kickoff event, so again, when they're a little more conversational and we're building relationships, having the conversation about the family place and what they do, but more importantly, just the cycle of abuse. And unfortunately, it is a cyclical thing that you see through generations. And the family place is offering, not just offering, but hopefully we're stepping in and we're able to break that cycle. So we're having those conversations about the family place at the kickoff events and really connecting with people on that deeper level and helping them feel like they can be part of the bigger story and part of the solution that we're working on. And then they become advocates. So it's relationship building, but it creates advocates in the city that we really need to connect to continue to build on Partners Card and the other events that the family place is doing.
That's fantastic and really, really, really well said. And Tiffany, I want to direct the next question to you and kind of touch upon something you were talking about earlier about, when you're targeting specific neighborhoods, to get, especially some of the high-end retailers to buy in. So talk a little bit about the community outreach strategy and how you work to get new people coming in, because you definitely have the devoted following of people that come back year after year that you can depend on, but how you specifically go about targeting and recruiting people to purchase that Partners Card with that simple message.
Yeah, so the way that we initially started is when we started with the store with Partners Card, what would happen is people would come and then they would say, you know what, have you guys ever talked to this store? Because I really like shopping at this store too. And then that would become like just rollover conversations will become how we engage not only other retailers, but then subsequently shoppers at those retail stores. And so really a lot of it is just around this, the strategy is around relationships. I always go back to relationships and then promotion of the mission. When we are in a store with a retailer, we are likely to be connected to another retailer because of the great experience that initial retailer had. So we are really, really high on stewardship. We want to make sure that we thank everyone, that we identify and celebrate everyone who participated in Partners Card. And I just think the energy around that is what gets people, interested in participating year after year.
That's absolutely fantastic. And I do want to ask, and I'd love for both of you to chime in. So I'd love for you to all to talk a little bit more about the relationship with North Park specifically, because that is such a large space with hundreds of stores and how, you work with, because that can feel overwhelming to a lot of people to work with something like that, where it's like, okay, how do we work with North Park to identify the right stores so that you kind of understand which stores, are more likely to participate versus ones that, may not be, just based on whatever their circumstances may be?
Honestly, we operate with a no fear model. So we engage every single store in North Park and ask, right? So we're not going to avoid asking anyone. So what I would say is that, our director of the Partners Card really does a lot of research around where people use it the most, right? And then what the outcome was for that. Did the store find that successful? We had a store one time say it drew so many people in it, it was overwhelming and they had to bring in additional staff, right, to support it. So when we are working with stores, we look at their capacity. We're looking at how we can support them as an organization when this happens, because we want to make sure that if it does become, say, overwhelming or there are glitches, that we can support them so that they can continue to want to participate. So we have, in general, to answer your initial question, no fear in asking anyone. I don't think there's a science around who we ask, because we will ask anyone if they want to participate in Partners Card.
That's fantastic. And when you've developed this over a number of years and your reputation precedes you, it makes no fear much, much easier because
Yes.
you've gotten a lot of yeses, but I'm sure you've gotten a few no's along the way.
Oh
We
yeah.
won't talk about those people, but
Mhm.
but that's just part of the ask. And unless they say no, never contact me again. No
Yes.
can mean no, not this year, but contact me next year, sort of thing.
Mhm.
So
No
it.
always means not this year. Don't, right? That's it. It's just no for the moment. Doesn't even mean don't call me on Monday. It just means no for the moment. But I
I
promise
love
you,
that. I
I mean,
love that.
look, I promise you, especially if Tiffany is talking to a retailer and I claim that the only reason they say no is because they just don't understand the mission. So that comes back to us to take a step back and go, okay, we didn't deliver the message. How do we deliver that message better so that they do say yes? Because if they understood, they would definitely say yes.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. And that's absolutely true. And I can see, Tiffany, I can just see you going in and it making it very difficult for any organization to say no. That's a very, very, very good thing. And I have a follow-up question for you, Margette. I'd love for you to share anything that you can tease about this year, what you have in store for some of the special preview and kickoff events for this year that you can tease. Obviously, you probably can't share everything, but if there's a couple things you can tease, that'd be amazing.
So we're working on a few new collaborations that are really going to blend style and substance in a really fresh way. And I can tell you they will be beautiful and most importantly, intentional. So a great reason to get involved early. And we are absolutely raising the bar this year. But again, they will be beautiful and intentional and everyone get involved and you'll get to participate.
Well, I love that as a purpose. Making it intentional is so key. And, people are like, how do I balance fun and intentional? If you really think it through thoughtfully, not that it's easy, but the story will come to you that you can go and do that. And, keeping those events like that fresh is why people come back year after year. But it's also why people say, you need to come with me to this because I had so much fun at it the last year, last 3 years, or last 5 years, or even longer than that. So, yeah, that very, very good and sage advice. And I know we're coming up on time here. And I always like to end with this question, and it will be a really fun answer with both of you today, I think. And we'll start with Tiffany, and then Margette, you can have the last word. And that is, what do all great signature fundraising events have in common?
All great signature fundraising events have in common that they tell a compelling story that has a mission connection. So for us, whether that's a survivor's voice or a powerful video, or really just an unforgettable moment during the event, if we have a speaker, right? Storytelling is what moves hearts and opens wallets.
It does. So all that's perfect. And I completely agree, Tiffany. It's storytelling. And then the hard part that we have to make look so easy and intentional is that storytelling, different pieces of different stories pull on different people's heartstrings in a different way. So one person, you may bring a tear to their eye and that's what inspires them. Someone else, you make them laugh and that's what inspires them. And someone else you connect with in a different way, and they connect back to an experience that they personally had or that they've witnessed over the years, and that's what's inspired them. So it's that storytelling, but knowing when to make the audience laugh, cry, and applaud, because each one of those things will inspire a different member of the audience in a little bit different way.
That is such good advice. I love the whole basically, tugging at the heartstrings to open the wallet. We're going to have to make that a hashtag because that's really, really good. But it also shows that people respond to things differently and they say yes for different reasons. And what I really appreciated, Margaret, about the follow-up to Tiffany's quote about the heart and the wallet is your understanding of that. And you can't necessarily do a one size fits all. Everyone's going to love my mission. They're just going to do it. They're going to do it for different reasons. So I love that you really understand that it takes different things for different people to relate to things. And I just think that's, fantastic answers. And, we're so excited to support you all with this. And, Margette, Tiffany, thank you so much for joining us today. This was really a fun conversation. I enjoyed it a lot.
Thank you for
Thank
having
you,
us.
Rob. Yeah.
Absolutely. And Partners Card benefiting the family place will be held from October 24th through November 2nd, 2025 at over 3 retailers throughout the Dallas, Texas area. For more information, please visit familyplace.org. And that will do it for this episode of Fun and Fundraising. I'm your host, Rob Giardinelli, reminding you to keep it fun, keep it interesting, and your guests will have a great time. Have a great day, everyone, and take care.